Rain, freshly cut grass, baking bread, brewing coffee, flowers. These are all things that countless people can personally attest to the wonderful fragrance of. A person's sense of smell heavily influences how they experience life in general. Smell has a strong impact on memory. For instance, when we smell a specific odor, it might bring up intense memories and feelings related to that smell. That is because the olfactory lobe, which processes scents, is strongly linked to the amygdala and the hippocampus, which are the regions of the brain involved in memory and emotion. Smells can elicit powerful emotional responses such as pleasure, joy, relaxation, disgust, or even worry. For example, lavender has been demonstrated to have a relaxing effect, whereas peppermint, for instance, can be invigorating and energizing. Smells can also influence our actions. Certain smells, for example, have been demonstrated to increase performance on cognitive tasks like memory recall and attentiveness. Other fragrances, on the other hand, can distract us or even damage cognitive functions. Our sense of smell can also have substantial social and cultural impact on our psychology in addition to impacting our emotions and behavior. Smells can be associated with specific cultural or social behaviors and used to generate a sense of identity, community, and belonging. Certain smells, for example, are employed in religions or spiritual rituals, while others are utilized in personal cleanliness or grooming. Overall, the psychological impact of smell is complex and multifaceted, and additional research is needed to completely comprehend it, but it is apparent, however, that smell has a substantial impact on our emotions, our conduct, and our social interactions. And I am completely smell blind. I was born with a disorder called Congenital Anosmia. It's a rare condition that affects about 1 in every 10,000 people. The disorder usually is caused by a genetic mutation that interferes with the development of the fetal olfactory system, but it can also be caused by an accident or disease that impairs that system. However, this is in fact less common until the recent spread of the virus. While we don't know for certain what caused my specific congenital anosmia, I think it might be related to my birth. I was brought into this world via C-section on a chilly January day, but to the fear of my parents, I was both blue and silent when I was born. One of my lungs was fully collapsed and I was immediately rushed into the ICU. While I suspect that this could have been part of the reason that I never developed the ability to smell, it didn't really actually become apparent that I was missing an entire sense until later on in my childhood. Individuals with this condition can't detect odors of any kind and may also have difficulties identifying specific substances such as ammonia or smoke. For example, this can make detecting hazards such as gas leaks or fires difficult or even impossible. With that in mind, I have to be extra certain that all of the carbon monoxide and smoke detectors in my home are fully functional. One of my lower level anxieties about not being able to smell is the idea of sleeping through a house fire until it's too late because I can't smell the smoke or anything burning. This actually has pushed me at one point in my life to try to invent this device, a wearable device that would vibrate with certain patterns when there were certain smells that were able to be detected in the air that reached a certain threshold. That way, if I were sleeping, for instance, and a fire did start, the device would sense the smoke and send a specific vibration pattern it would vibrate in a specific way and wake me up so that I would be able to be alerted not only to danger, but what exactly the danger would be. However, I quickly realized that I never had the tools or the ability or knowledge to be able to create such a device, so I just decided that I will in fact just get burned alive in my house if that's how that is, and that's just how life has to be somehow. Now, congenital anosmia can significantly reduce a person's quality of life as well. Individuals who lack a sense of smell may have trouble detecting damaged foods, identifying certain flavors in foods, or enjoying the aroma of flowers or perfumes They may also struggle with the social interactions because smell is a very key component of many social cues and communication. For instance, I find it difficult to keep my fridge fully stocked because outside of an expirational date or the very obvious visual indicators, I have absolutely no idea if a food or drink is safe to consume or not. Milk is one of the most needlessly terrifying food items in my life, because the only way that I can tell if it's good or not is to see if it has the consistency of milk or something similar to clam chowder or cottage cheese, and at that point it's usually a little bit too late. Along with that, cooking is a pretty daunting task for me, as many of the spices and other flavors and techniques that are utilized in cooking implement the use of smell for better flavor. Speaking of flavor, many people ask if I can, in fact, taste, because taste is pretty involved with smell. While it's not certain how much of an effect smell has on taste, it has been said that a person's sense of taste is anywhere from 2/3 to 95% determined by the sense of smell. With that in mind, what I choose to eat is heavily determined by its texture rather than its flavor. When it comes to specific flavors, I have a very difficult time being able to distinguish any flavors outside of the general sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami flavors. As a result, there aren't nearly as many foods that appeal to me, so when I do find one that I enjoy and can consume, I will eat it obsessively until I can't stand to consume another bite of it, and then I find a new fixation and the cycle repeats. Being born without the ability to smell has made me an easy scapegoat for many people around me when it comes to the very nasty smelling tasks. For instance, does the trash smell? Well, Logan can get that because he in fact can't smell it. Did the dog poop on the couch and it's all rubbed in there and disgusting? Well, Logan can probably get that because in fact he can't smell it. The epitome of this mindset was when I had to work as the janitor of a small country butcher shop. Now, being a janitor in general isn't an amazingly clean or fresh smelling job, but being the janitor of this itty bitty butcher shop was arguably disgusting. I obviously won't go into like exact detail here because, but trust me when I tell you that it's pretty nasty. Perhaps if enough people do request the video, perhaps I will make a video more around the adventures of my life without smell, and maybe I'll even cover this part of my life, but it stank, and that's all that I'm gonna say. Pun intended, I would say. Now, some of you might have the question, how does one realize that they can't smell? If you lose the ability to smell later on in life, it's pretty obvious, but if you were born without the ability to smell, how does a child, a wee bitty one, communicate that something is off when they themselves have no idea that something is actually off? Well, the answer to that was pretty difficult for me and my family to even decipher. It started early on when my parents noticed that I never seemed to comment or notice when food was cooking, bread was baking, rain was coming, anything like that, that everybody seems to pick up on. This pushed my parents to ask me if I could smell, to which I obviously said, I don't understand what you're asking. I don't know. No, I don't. I can't smell. There's nothing that I can tell here. My parents thought that perhaps it was just a strange little childhood fluke, but wanted to be able to keep an eye on it. That was until one day that my dad and I were out hunting for a skunk that had been raiding and killing our chickens in our coops. My dad saw the skunk from a good distance and got it with his hunting rifle, but it was in long grass, so we had to go and look for it so that we could bury it later on. Now, for a small moment, visualize little young me and my dad wading through tall grass looking for this skunk that reeks something rather unearthly. Soon, my dad starts slowly dying due to the smell, as one normally does when close to a skunk, which let us know that it was nearby where we were standing. But much to my dad's confusion, I was not showing any indicators of noticing any form of scent until I was so close to the skunk that I started coughing and spitting, my eyes were watering, and I was just having all the way around a bad time. As it turns out, even if you can't smell a skunk, if you do get too close to one after it has sprayed, you will absolutely be able to taste it, as I found out in the most atrocious of ways. Obviously, this was a pretty positive sign that there was something up. So we went into an olfactory doctor to be able to see what might be going on. I remember my mom and I were sat in this little itty bitty doctor's office room that had a small cabinet of various vials in there. Each vial had a certain level of potency of fragrance contained within. We started out, of course, with the lowest potency of smell. When he opened the first vial, my mom could immediately smell it from across the arguably little room, but I was completely unable to detect it even when opened and put directly under my nose. We continued through this process for a few more vials when the doctor eventually seemed to get rather fed up and just went for the final vial in the cabinet. When he popped open the most potent fragrance, both him and my mother were having obvious difficult reactions, coughing, eyes watering, the whole gambit again, to the strength of whatever that smell was that was in that bottle, even though it was nowhere near their nose. Again, the doctor put it underneath my nose, said, why don't you go ahead and take a pretty big sniff? And again, like before, nothing registered for me. And it was then that it became pretty obvious that I was, in fact, fully smell blind, aka congenital anosmia. When I was younger, this wasn't so much of an issue, but as I got older, it did become more and more problematic. I couldn't work certain jobs, for instance, due to my inability to smell. An aspect of this inability that gives me a level of anxiety and stress at all times is not knowing how I myself, as a person, smell. And what makes it worse is that I have no way to be able to check. Do I stink? Who knows? Do I have coffee breath? Maybe. It's just a possibility. Similarly, trying to obtain any good anti-odor products is nearly impossible for me. I have to read the labels of deodorants just to decide whether or not I want to smell like a warm summer breeze with sandalwood fragrance, whatever that means. Same with fragrances of soaps and candles, car fresheners, anything that has a scent to it is very much lost on me. So if I had the pleasure of meeting any of you in person and you notice how I smell at the time, just please tell me that I smell wonderful so I can have a nice, lovely rest of my day living in happy and blissful ignorance, because I can't take finding out that I stink. It's the worst thing. Now, there are countless stories and scenarios that I have experienced throughout my life that have been affected by my inability to smell, but I think I'll probably actually just stop this video here. If you would like to be able to see more about this subject, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you or someone you know has congenital anosmia or has lost the ability to smell, let me know in the comments below, along with what sort of challenges you have faced not having the ability to smell. Since the virus swept the globe, I have never felt more heard and understood than I do now, with so many being tragically unable to smell. I honestly feel pretty terrible for the people who did at one point have the ability to smell but then lost it due to the virus, as opposed to myself who never had the ability, so I don't really know what it is I'm missing out on. While there are practices and techniques that can be done to mitigate the effects of lacking this sense, there is still no cure for the condition. So that's my little video about being born without the ability to smell, being born smell blind. If you did like it, hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Again, if you or someone you know has been born with this condition or has even lost your ability to smell, let's have a little string of comments going in the comment section. This isn't a really common thing, so it would be kind of cool to be able to have a little community of people who just have no idea what smell even means. So thank you again so much for watching this video, but without further ado, that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome, as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.